Good evening, Mexico. This is Zachary King coming to you from Wichita, Kansas. I really wish I was there with you. To give you a little background story as to why I'm not, back around November or December, I went into the hospital with sepsis, and it was caused by a blood disease in my foot, but we didn't know that at the time. I ended up spending 2 weeks in the hospital, and then I had to go to physical therapy for 2 weeks so I could learn to walk without putting weight on my right foot. And then I came home for about 2 weeks, and then I had the flu, so I caught H1N1, and I had to go back in to the hospital. Spent 7 days there. And then I came back out, and my doctor saw me 1 week, and then he saw me another week, and he said he was going to have surgery on my foot again the following Wednesday, that he thought that there was some dead skin in there that he could remove and would improve the quality of my foot. And that sounded good to me. And the following week, on a Tuesday, I was at dialysis. Yeah, I get that too. And while I was at dialysis, he came in and checked out my foot and said that he couldn't save it, that I had, or what did I have?
Gangrene.
Gangrene, thank you. So I had gangrene and couldn't, he couldn't save that, so they had to cut off my foot between the ankle and the knee. Up until then, I was planning on coming to see you. I was looking forward to it. I figured God wanted the Mexican people to hear my message. And the Mexican people I know are beautiful people. And, your Catholicism is awesome. You guys, the Our Lady of Guadalupe rescuing 9 million. That was pretty awesome. I was hoping to get to see that. And it didn't quite work out that way. But I do want to plan a future trip to you. It would be awesome to get to see your country. So, without anything further, this is my testimony. Now, if you're familiar with me at all, you've seen my background videos on that I have 2 cats that I rescued and all the other stuff that I have going on. So you know that at any time somebody could bust through that door and need to take my blood pressure or need to take my stats or my vitals or something like that. And if that happens, we'll pause the video. But if you're fans of mine, then you know that this kind of stuff happens. So I started out when I was 10 years old. And I know you're thinking, what could he possibly have done at 10 years old to warrant him a trip to hell? Well, I earned my trip to hell. I started off doing magic, trying to figure out if magic was real. And, I had watched all the fantasy movies, all of the, we didn't have Harry Potter back then, but if we'd had it, I'd have watched it because I wanted to know if magic was a real thing. I asked my parents, who were devout Baptists, that means they never went to church, and I asked my Baptist preacher if magic was real. And they apparently had all missed the approximately 33 verses in the Bible that tell you not to do magical things. And they all said magic was fake. It was just stuff in movies. It wasn't stuff I could really do. So I figured I was going to do a magic spell for money, because I figured nobody got hurt in a money spell, and see what happens. And I did a spell for money, and I found a can of tennis balls with a $5 bill in it. That's pretty cool, but that doesn't quite prove magic is real. And there was a tennis tournament in town that weekend. Somebody had to find that. So the next weekend, I did the spell again. And this time I found a a $10 bill on the side of the road. I thought, all right, $15, 8 days, but it still could have been a coincidence. So what could I do to up the ante a little bit? Well, I was doing a game at school called the Bloody Mary game. And we go in the bathrooms and we turn out the lights and we chant the Bloody Mary phrase and see what happens. And they said if you did it right, the spirit of a burn victim would show up in the mirror. Okay, yeah, I'm game for that. So the first time we did it, we had about 50 kids in the bathroom, girls and boys, in the same bathroom. And we've got the lights out and we're doing the chant. And suddenly this scary face appears in the mirror, and 49 screaming kids ran out of the bathroom. One child, one idiot, we can call him an idiot because it was me, decided this was the coolest thing in the world. I did this. I chanted this phrase. I saw the face. I can do magic. So I decide that I'm going to start doing this every day. Everybody in our school is doing this. This is popular. I don't know if you guys had the Charlie Charlie Challenge. We had that in America a couple of years ago. It went through like that, and everybody wanted to play it. But there were a couple of kids that were injured, like badly, like broken arm, broken leg injuries. And they sent notes home, and I had to take that note to my dad. My dad calls me into the room in his usual tone of love and screamed at me, "Have you been playing this game?" And, wanting to be the honest child I was, I said, "No." And so I wouldn't get caught at school, because if we got caught at school, we'd be suspended for 3 days. I decided I'd play the game at home. I had my own bathroom in my house. I had my own private bathroom. So, at school I could play the game once a day and maybe get caught. At home I could do it in the morning when I woke up, before I ate breakfast, after I ate breakfast, after I brushed my teeth. When I got home from school, my parents weren't home, so I'd play the game there multiple times till my parents got home. Then my parents are fixing dinner. They don't know when I'm in the bathroom. And anytime they come to the bathroom and knock on the door, "Are you in the bathroom?" "Yes." "Well, let me know when you're out." Well, I finish the game and run back out. I made sure that it looked like I stayed regular to them. So I kept doing that. When I was 11 years old, I was the victim of a sexual assault at school at the hands of a female teacher. Now, she told me this was my idea. I wanted to do this. And if I told anybody about it, I'm the one that would get in trouble. I figured, I was 11 years old and she was a teacher. Why would she lie to me? At 12 years old, there was this kid that we used to play D&D with, Dungeons and Dragons. And he disappeared from our lives and our school. We just figured he moved away. But it turned out that he was being homeschooled, and he was now back with our group. We found out that he was homeschooled and that he hung out with this group of Satanists, which seemed kind of weird, but I'd seen all the creepy movies on TV. When the bad guy's on the screen, creepy music plays. So I figured that's, not really like that would happen, but God would give me some kind of warning that this wasn't the place to be. And at my house, we had a 19-inch TV, 19-inch color TV, and in my brother's bedroom, we had a 13-inch black and white. Well, over there, they had a 50-inch projection screen color TV. And they had autographed guitars on the wall and gold and platinum albums on the wall, autographed by the bands. And, at my house, you could have 3 meals a day and a snack if mom was in a good mood. But over there, you could have as many meals as you wanted, and your snacks could be as many as you wanted. At my house, you had to eat healthy. Over there, you could live on pizza and potato chips. Whatever you wanted to eat, you could eat. I had my first cigarette over there, smoked my first joint over there, drank my first beer over there, took my first shot over there. These are like the coolest people in the world. Has 10 minutes not passed yet?
10 minutes, yes.
Sorry about that. So we had all the things that I wanted to ever do and didn't even know I wanted to do. Like at my house, you could watch a G-rated movie or a PG-rated movie if Dad had vetted it. But over at this place, they had R-rated movies. I didn't know that existed. They had X-rated movies. They had triple X-rated movies. They had triple X-rated movies with kids in at my age. And I found out that what happened to me when I was 11 was atrocious. But now I could get my power back. I could do anything I wanted to do with anybody. And if somebody wanted to do something with me and I didn't want to, I could say no. And if I wanted to do something with somebody, they couldn't tell me no. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then they told me that I could be in movies that were like what happened to me, but with anybody I wanted to, any age. There were movies like this being shot all the time, and I could now be a star of these movies. So I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I'm 12 years old, starring in child pornography, being re-victimized every time, but not realizing that, thinking that I'm winning. I'm on top of the world because I'm getting to have sex at least every weekend, sometimes every day, but not realizing that they're taking advantage of me. So when I was almost 13, this older kid said, you're a member of a satanic coven, right? And I laughed it off. But a couple of days later, I went back to a coven member, an adult that I knew, that I trusted. And I said, hey, I got something for you. You're going to laugh. I heard this is a satanic coven. Crazy, right? And he said, it is. Would you like to be a member? And I got scared. My heart dropped into my stomach, and I couldn't imagine, like, how did I get this far? Like, how am I suddenly in a satanic coven? This wasn't anything like it was in the movies. Like in the movies, there was a distinct good guy and a bad guy. And here Satan blurred the lines quite a bit. And everything I wanted to do, I got to do. Like my parents were the no police. Anything I wanted to do. Dad, there's a new movie coming out this Friday. Can I go? No. Dad, the Moody Blues are coming to town. Can I go? No. Dad, can I? No. After a while, you just look at my dad a certain way. No. But over there, hey, the Moody Blues are coming to town. Yeah, we're going to go see them that night. But Friday, during the day, we're going to go to a movie instead. Well, it's the same movie I wanted to go see. Everything I wanted to do, Satan was right there to say yes. So, I'm thinking, do I really want to join this Satan character? Well, Satan says yes to everything I want to do. God says no. My parents say no. Maybe I do want to join this Satan guy. He seems pretty cool. So I asked, what do I have to do to join? They said there's 13 steps, and I've done most of them already. What I have left to do is slice my left thumb and bleed onto a document. And then I have to sign the document in 3 places. It's a 5-page document. On page 1, the blood of Jesus washes away all sin, but not mine. On page 2, Jesus died for everyone, but not me. And I sign my name to that. On the final page, I agree to sell my soul to the devil. Now, has anyone out there listening to my voice, have any of you sold your soul to the devil? Just in case you have and you're worried about that, don't be. Go to confession. All you can do is give your will to the devil. You cannot sell what you do not own. You don't own your soul. You cannot loan it, lease it, let him borrow it. You can't do anything with it. You have no bargaining power with your own soul. Even if you tell him, I give you my soul, you haven't. You can give the devil your will. When you go to confession, you give your will back to God. Now, Satan will lie to you and tell you he owns your soul. He does not own your soul. Jesus owns your soul. Remember Jesus? The guy that died on the cross for you? He died on the cross for you. He has your soul, not you, and certainly not the devil. But at 13 years old, I believed I had sold my soul to the devil. Then there's a ceremony to be held. I come into a room wearing a white robe, signifying I'm losing my innocence. They baptize me, full submersion, in a vat of human blood, pig's blood, and human urine. I come up and go into another room and I take a shower. Then I come back out in a black robe, signifying I've been baptized into a world of darkness. I come into a room and I sit in a chair, and they hand me a wheel with a crucifix in it. I spin the crucifix upside down, signifying human sacrifice. I grab the arms of the crucifix and Jesus' arms, and after they read off the document that I signed, and I show my thumb to show that it was my blood that I used, then I break the arms downward, denouncing Christ. The symbol you're left with at this point is a peace sign. You then intertwine the document you signed with the peace sign, and they say that they lock that in a vault, and your soul is forever tied to it, and that you're selling your soul, which, like I said before, is impossible to do. Then you have a party to celebrate that you're now a Satanist, but the reality is you're celebrating that one day you're going to die and go to hell. So I got to share all my magic spells and everyone else's magic spells because magic consumed me. Magic was the greatest thing in the world to me. Having proved that magic works, this was something I could do. Oh, well, it was something I forgot to say earlier. When I was doing the magic spell, I started doing the magic spell at home, and when I did it the third time, I was doing the magic, the Bloody Mary chant. Let me go back to what I was saying before my previous interruption. In the Bloody Mary chant, I had to do it at home instead of at school so I wouldn't get caught. And so then I did the Bloody Mary chant. I did my spell for money. And then when the Bloody Mary face appeared, I let it know I was doing the spell for money. And the next day I went out and I found what looked like Monopoly money rolled up tight in rubber bands. And I went out and played the next day. And later that night, I'm unraveling these rubber bands, see what I have. And it turns out it looks like Monopoly money because I'd never seen a $100 bill. When I unrolled them all, I had 10 $100 bills. So I had $1,000. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that magic was real. So this is the thought that I'm moving forward with. So when I have the chance to join the Satanic Coven, and I'm being taught there that magic is real, sure, yeah, I'm willing to do this. Everything that they're willing to do, everything seems fun. I mean, I'm trying mushrooms, I'm trying pills, pain pills, pretty much anything I can do, anything I want to do, I can do there. Like I'm a chocolate fiend, and I've got chocolate to eat all the time. I've got chocolate there that I didn't even know existed. It's not at the regular store, and I've got all the toys that I want. My parents bought me a lot of stuff, but they bought me what they thought I would like. They didn't buy me what I wanted. Now I can buy what I want. And I can keep my stuff at this other place because my parents aren't there to see what it is I've got. They don't see that I've got the complete Kiss album set. They don't know that I've got all that stuff. And if they'd have known, they wouldn't have let me have it. Because remember, my parents are the no police. When I was 14 years old, I participated in a sex party that was supposed to be for me and all the males 12 to 15 years old, and a female that was 19 that was what's called a breeder. Her job is to have sex, get pregnant, and have an abortion. And so I said, cool. And then I went home to look up the word abortion because I didn't know what it meant. And I looked it up, and my dictionary was so old the word wasn't in there. So I looked it up at school, at the library, and they had like 2 or 3 books that are really thick, but they all said abortion on them, but I couldn't possibly have to read that entire book to find out what it was. So I went back to my coven and I said, hey, I heard I've got to perform an abortion in 9 months. Cool, right? And he was like, yeah, I guess. I said, well, what's an abortion? I've looked it up. I can't find it. And he says, oh, you're killing a baby in the womb. And I said, is that legal? He goes, oh, yeah, in the womb legal, out of the womb murder. Okay. So at 9 months later, I performed my first late term and assisted abortion. I would say if you want to look that up, you can look up on YouTube videos of late term abortions. You don't need my gross description here, but I got to tell you, it's pretty gross. So somebody told me that this was a few years ago. They told me that my talk was age appropriate for 15 and up. Well, here's my problem with that. By the time I was 15, I smoked cigarettes every day. I was addicted to pain pills. I was addicted to sex. I was addicted to masturbation. I was in child pornography. I took mushrooms at least on the weekends. I smoked pot every day. And I'd broken all 10 commandments, including murder. And now I'm old enough to hear my own talk. I'm not saying you gotta bring your child to one of my talks at 10 years old, but you gotta know the language that your kid uses. You gotta know how to talk to your kid, and you gotta know how to tell them the things that I did and warn them against them. If your child has the internet, they are not as innocent as you'd like to think they are. And if your child is gonna be curious, they have a natural curiosity, stuff they want to ask. Wouldn't you rather them ask you than ask their friend that's just as stupid as they are? Or ask you rather than ask the internet, where you can find out anything and it's not always right? You know, there's always a better place to go. Mom and dad are never cool. Mom and dad won't give me the right answer. Well, you and mom need to be cool. You need to get cool. You know, it's okay to tell your children no. If you're going to tell them no, give them an alternative. My parents would shut me down. You know, you can't do this and you can't do that. Then Satan would come right along and pick me up and go, hey, let's go do all these things your dad said no to. So avoid being my parents. You know, you want to be able to tell your child no, but hey, why don't we go do this instead? Give them an alternative. You know, when the devil says, hey, your dad said no to this. Yeah, but my dad also said yes to this. So this would be cool. So I stayed with this coven till I graduated high school. And then I was going off to college. And I thought, how am I going to find another satanic coven? This is before the internet. AOL didn't exist. You know, it's like, how am I going to find someplace? It's not like they're going to advertise it in the town square. Well, I found it because they advertised it in the town square. The first day of classes was a Wednesday, and Wednesday is when I can't think of what it's called now. I'm sorry. It's a student council meetings. All the um, like the Republican and the Democrat and um, Baptist and Catholic student union. And so I thought, well, let's try these guys out and see what they're like. And I walked through the area and found that there was a Satanic and a Wiccan student union. I was like, okay, all right, let's try that. So this was a bunch of kids away from home for the first time and thought that Satan was all about getting drunk, getting high, and getting laid. Like, well, I've been doing that since I was 12. I don't need a satanic coven for that. And these guys like made up magic spells on the spot. Well, that's not what I'm into either. And then these guys would go to their satanic meeting on Saturday night, and Sunday they'd go off to the Baptist church or the Catholic church. You know, whatever church they were going off to, but not to destroy it, not to break it up. But that's because they were Christian. And the Satanic Coven was just like a club. It was just a hobby, something they could do, and then they'd come back on Sunday and go to church. I was like, that's not what I'm into. I believe myself to be a real Satanist. So I contacted my first coven and said, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I've heard there's a coven out there to rule the world. Well, that's what I want to do. I want to rule the world. So they put me in touch with Satan's World Church or World Church of Satan. Same name, two different names, same coven. So I go to that. So then I'm going to this, and the first meeting I went to, there was this guy. Now, let's go back to me being 13 years old at a sleepover. There was this guy dressed in a tuxedo, a top hat, had a wand, and corpse paint on his face. He looked like a member of KISS, but wearing a tuxedo. And I thought, that's the coolest look ever. And the next day I asked, hey, who is that? And they said, oh, you were dreaming. That didn't happen. Oh, okay. All right. And that guy winked at me when I was 13, and I thought that was the coolest thing. So when I was 18, 19 years old, and I'm standing at this other coven meeting, World Church of Satan, I see this guy, not the same guy, with the same look. And I grabbed somebody and I was like, who is that? What is that? How can I do that? And they said, well, who ran your coven? I said, we had a fairly large coven. It had between 120 and 150 members. And we were run by 13 high priests and priestesses. And he said, okay. He goes, well, our coven is fairly large too. It has over 1 million members worldwide. We're run by a CEO and a board of directors, and the people that do the official magic of the coven is the High Wizard. That's what that guy is, the High Wizard. I was like, how do I become that? He's like, I don't know. So then about 3 years later, I get called before the CEO and board of directors. Usually when you get called before them, you're never seen or heard from again. So I thought they were going to kill me. So I actually went out and bought a pistol with a bunch of ammo. I thought, I ain't going out like no sucker. I'm like packed and ready for bear. I've got like a 9mm in my back and probably close to 150 rounds of ammo on me. And when I went in, they showed me about 9 different uniforms or outfits, variations of the costume I saw when I was 13 and again when I was 18. And they said that I'd been picked to be the next High Wizard and that I could use any one of these variations or I could choose my own. It's any variation of this look, and whatever I think is cool is how I can dress. So that sounds cool to me. I'm given this book. It's very hokey. It's called The High Wizard Handbook. It's a book basically of cartoons or animation. The opening statement of the book is, by accepting this position, you are agreeing that no one can tell you what to do. No one has the authority to tell you no. You can tell anyone else no. You are going to be at the top of the world. You are going to rule the world. Well, who doesn't want to do these things? So I do that. I'm moving forward on that agenda. And during the course of my tenure of evil, I did 146 assisted abortions. I helped split 120 churches. Now that's not break them apart, that's split them, just to cause a little rift in them. And that was the Baptist church. And that stopped in the 90s. And I did all the evil under the sun. But I tell people that when you can do everything you want to do, suddenly sinning becomes very boring. You find out that 100 DVDs is nothing. 500 DVDs is still nothing, and 1,000 is still nothing. Your home theater system is never big enough or loud enough. 500 CDs is not enough. 5,000 CDs is not enough. And no matter what size your house is, it's not big enough. I had a real apartment that was in Frenchtown in Tallahassee, Florida. Frenchtown is the worst section of town. But I also had a place in Tallahassee that looked nice for if people were going to come to see the High Wizard. Then I had almost a mansion that I would go to. If I was going to certain cities around the nation, I had homes that I could stay in. I had different cars that I could drive. My real car was a Nissan Sentra. But, I had other vehicles that were like dream vehicles. Vehicles that I wanted to drive as a kid. And now suddenly I have, I always wanted a Lamborghini Countach. Now I was able to drive a Lamborghini Diablo, which I thought was still a cool car, but it wasn't my Lamborghini Countach. And, I'm doing everything I want to do, but it's no longer, when I first got my job, I got to travel. After being in it for a long time, I had to travel. It was no longer fun. There's stuff that I had to do that it just, nothing, magic consumed me and I was addicted to it, but I couldn't, I didn't want to do it, but I had to. It was my job. And I ended up plotting an escape. And I'd been in magic, I'd been in Satanism for over 20 years. And about 26 years total. And I scheduled a doctor's appointment with a satanic doctor. And I got away. I got on the highway and drove. I was supposed to get off at the last exit, but I didn't get off. I kept going. And I kept going, and eventually my car ran out of gas. And then I spent the night in my car, and the next day I sold my car and bought a Greyhound bus ticket. And my plan was to go into Canada. For some reason, I thought Canada didn't have Satan. I don't know what the reasoning was there. But so I got a bus ride, and they rejected me at New York. This was before 9/11 happened, so we didn't need a passport at that time. But apparently I did, and they rejected me, said I could go anywhere. So I kind of opened my hand up over an atlas, put it down, and it landed on Oklahoma. So I went to Oklahoma, and I lived there off the grid for the most part for about 3 years. And then I tried going into Canada again, but this time I had a car. But this time I also needed a passport, and I didn't have one. So I was heading towards one border, and I got stopped at that one, and I was told there was a border with no border guard. And it was near Vermont, and I thought, all right, I'm going to go that way. So I drove that way, and when I was almost there, I was only a couple of hours away. I was exhausted. I needed to pull over to a rest stop and take a nap. I figured, no, it'll still be fine. 2 hours from now, what's the big deal? So I took a nap, but instead of taking a nap for 2 hours, I slept till morning. And then I with when I woke up in the morning, I thought, no big deal, still just the next day. So I drove into the town, or I drove to the border, and there was a guard there. And I thought, no way, this guy's not supposed to be here. So this guy pulls me over, searches my car inside and out, top to bottom. And, I'm like, thought you weren't here. And he says, oh, I've been trying to get this job for 3 years, and today is my first day on the job. And then I realized God's got a sense of humor. If I'd have done this yesterday, I would have made it fine. But as it is, I'm not making it at all. So this guy lets me go, but not into Canada. I get rejected, and I'm worth $18 and have half a tank of gas. So I drive to Vermont, Burlington, Vermont. I get a job my first day in town, working at a bar called Nectar's. And I started off as the dishwasher, and then I was a bouncer. Well, there they call them a doorman. And then I was head of security. And then I ended up moving to another bar called Kahiki Moon. And all this time, I'm still practicing magic, but I'm not joining a coven because so many of them are connected. And I don't want to join one that's connected to another one and then end up dying because they found out I'm the high wizard. So then I got into retail, and I went into Finish Line, and then Sunglass Hut, and then Piercing Pagoda. And all these places I was the manager. At, Finish Line I was the manager in training. Sunglass Hut I was the GM. And Piercing Pagoda I shared the manager. I was a manager and there was another co-manager. So one day this woman come in and she wanted to buy a pair of gold hoop earrings. And I sold her what I thought was the perfect pair. And then I gave her the receipt and I said, if you call the 800 number on this receipt and take a survey, you might win $1,000. And she's like, great, I've got something for you too. And she reaches in her purse and I thought, oh no, she's going to pull out a Jack Chick pamphlet. She's going to tell me that I'm sinning and I have to get on my knees and face God and all these options that I don't really have because, I sold my soul to the devil when I was 13. And instead, she pulls out a little gold disc. Now, I recognize gold jewelry. I recognize cheap gold jewelry because we sell it. And she pulls out this gold-colored cheap piece of tin. And she tells me, this is very powerful. Well, I know Christians don't bless anything. And then she says the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Now, I partied with rock stars. I helped make about 1,200 rock stars because that's what the devil does. He works through the Illuminati, and I worked with the Illuminati for 12 years. So she says the weirdest thing I've ever heard. She said, the Blessed Mother is calling you into her army. I grew up Baptist. I'm thinking, Blessed Mother, Isis, Gaia? I have no idea who the Blessed Mother is. Now, her telling me it's powerful, though, I'm taking this as a challenge. Like, at one time, there was 7.2 billion people in the world, and there could be between 1 and 10 high wizards in the world. So let your brain wrap around that. There could have been 7.2 billion people, and I could have been the only high wizard. That's an ego trip and a half. That's really cool. And you're trying to tell me that this blessed, miraculous metal, that I didn't know that's what it was, is stronger than me? No, 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 no. You're not telling me that. That's not the message I'm getting from you. The message I'm getting from you is that you think there's some mystique with this metal, but it can't do anything to me. It has no power over me. And I stuck my hand out. She looked so pleased that I was willing to take it. Of course, she didn't know I was willing to take it, and then I was going to toss it on the floor or slam it on my jewelry counter and tell her it's worthless. This has no power. There's no mystique to this. This can't do anything to me. Sure, let me have it. And I stuck my hand out, and she dropped this blessed, miraculous metal in my hand. And I clenched my fist around it, and suddenly I'm transported away from my mall and away from my store. And I'm in a darkened void, and it's me and this woman, Marianne Wickman, and she's explaining about the magic spell I did the night before that no one else knows I did. And she knows about the 120 churches I split, and that's of the devil. And the 146 abortions I committed, and that's of the devil. And she tells me about 8 or 9 other sins, and she ends every statement with, and that's of the devil. And now I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. I can't do magic with her. I can't battle her because her magic is stronger than mine. Let's go back to, I could have been one high wizard in 7 billion people. I did not have the strength to give somebody a worthless gold-colored piece of tin, transport both of us to a darkened void, and know all their sins. Her magic is beyond mine. And I'm terrified. And she says again, the Blessed Mother is calling you into her army. And I knew instantly that was the Mother of God. And when I recognized it as the Mother of God, Mary showed up. And she smiled at me. At that moment, I was acutely aware of my 146 assisted abortions. And I knew I did not deserve this smile. But she smiled at me. And she took me by the hand that had the metal in it. And she turned me around. And Divine Mercy Jesus was standing behind me. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what Divine Mercy was. But here these rays of light shooting over me and under me, and around me and through me. And I knew I did not sell my soul to the devil when I was 13. I knew that Jesus Christ was my Lord and Savior. I knew that all my magic, my occult, my New Age, my Satanism was a box of false promises. And I knew everything that's Catholic was truth. And the Blessed Mother told me my job was to help her end abortion. And I opened my hand, and I was back in my store, back in my mall. This woman was telling me where she went to Mass, and I wrote down everything that she said and started going to daily Mass there the next day. I came into the church in May of '08. I was given the medal in January of '08. If you want to know more about my history and my past, look up allsaintsministry.org, and I have a lot of instructional videos there. Thank you for tuning in. Hi, this is Zachary King, coming to you almost live from Wichita, Kansas. I was asked a question as to whether the rosary stops abortion. When the Blessed Mother asked me to help her end abortion, that my job was to help her end abortion, I just accepted that. Like, okay, that's my job. But a few weeks later, I was going to adoration every day, and I'm seeing Jesus every day, and I'm not getting any instruction really. So I asked, excuse me, Jesus, your mom said that my job was to help her end abortion, but I don't know how. And he said, oh, wait just a second. And then his mom showed up, and she said, use what you know. And she was gone. And use what you know made all the sense to me because of stuff that I had seen over the last 26 years. As a high wizard, I performed 146 assisted abortions. I performed 149. 146 of them worked. 3 of them did not. One of the stories of one of those that did not was I arrived in time to do the abortion. I arrived with the abortion doctor and with my entourage. And we all set up, and we're going upstairs, and there's these large jalousie windows. Large jalousie windows have a hand crank on them. So you crank them up and the windows open up. And the people outside were chanting something. They started off with, there was a satanic biker gang on our side of the road, and on the other side were a bunch of people quietly chanting. Well, we were Satanists, we chanted, so we recognized chanting. And then at some point, we noticed that they're on their knees and they're chanting with even more fervor. Like they seem happily chanting. And so we opened the jalousie windows to see what they were saying. And when we opened the windows, then we could hear that it was, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. And as they're saying that, I'm saying that part. So I can repeat back what they're saying. And then when the second part starts, a handler is the person that brings you whatever your favorite sins are. If you've got a cocaine addiction, they're the person that brings you your cocaine. Or whatever your addiction is, they bring you whatever that is. So my handler is there, and he starts repeating back, Holy Mary, Mother of God. But we start laughing at that point. Because we're Satanists, and we're thinking, who could be the Mother of God? Nobody. So we laugh that off. And they continue chanting, and we turn the jalousie the other way and close the window. And we go back over to where the abortion is taking place. And the doctor says, let's get going. It's that time. The woman is doing this as a breeder. Her job is to have an abortion. Her job is to get pregnant so she can have an abortion. The rest of the people in the room are doing the chant. Everything's ready to go. And the doctor checks, and he says, you're not even dilated. Why are we here? And the woman is like, Is this your first rodeo? I'm clearly ready. The baby's in the birth canal. Let's get going. And he says, you're not ready. And so she looks at me and she says, is this your first rodeo too? And I said, no, but I'm not a doctor. I don't even know what dialyzed means. I don't know what you need me to do. And she said, will you check and tell them that I'm ready for the abortion? I said, I can't tell you that. I don't know when you're ready. She's like, the baby's in the birth canal. It's ready now. So I kind of stick my hand in, but I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm telling the doctor, I don't know. And he says, I'm telling you, she's not ready. It's not ready she's not dilated. She's not ready. And she's yelling at me and yelling at him. And she's cussing us out. It's like 5 minutes of solid cussing out. She's mad. I'm mad because I've wasted my day. I'm supposed to be doing an abortion right now. And she's not ready. And the woman's cussing us out. The doctor says that he can come back later tonight. I said, I can't do that. I've got stuff to do. And the woman's talking to us, and we hear a baby cry. And we both look down, and the baby's come out. Now, at that coven, if you kill the baby in the womb, then it's an abortion. And if you kill the baby outside the womb, it's murder. So you can't kill the baby outside the womb. And it failed. We had a failed abortion. And at that time, if that happens, then we have a nurse and a
social worker.
my assistant's trying to help me, but I can't hear because my headphones are noise canceling. What?
Social worker.
Social worker, thank you. A social worker that comes in and they get the adoption started, and the baby goes out to a family that wants to adopt it. The Satanists don't want to adopt it. Satanists wanted to murder it. But we don't want to get a murder charge. So when I returned back to the office, I checked on the paperwork of all the failed abortions. And in my report, I wrote that people were praying on prayer ropes, Jesus beads, prayer beads, and worry beads. And that's all the reports I pulled up were like that. It had wording similar. No one said rosary. If we'd all said rosary, I'd have realized that praying the rosary is what's canceling the abortions. But those words weren't used. So I didn't figure that's what was that's what was happening. But as it turns out, having the rosary said stops the abortion.
What is the power of the priests, and what graces are wasted when they do not live in grace?
The power of the priest is mighty. And the priest, his hands have been consecrated by the bishop. This is why he should be the only person touching the consecrated host. And having a priest in a state of grace, there's so many graces that flow through him and flow through, from the Eucharist out through him and through the Holy Spirit and out through him and God the Father and out through him. And he represents so many things to us as churchgoers and worshipers. And he becomes in persona Christi. I mean, that's in the person of Christ. And to not take advantage of being in a state of grace, you're separating yourself from God, and you're therefore, in a sense, separating us from God, because you're supposed to be leading us to God. And now suddenly you're not in persona Christi, and it would also, I would think, would be a dangerous place to be. You guys should learn something about spiritual warfare and learn how to fight, because if you understood the laws of spiritual warfare, you'd be in a state of grace all the time.
What power does each abortion infuse into evil?
That's a kind of a scary thought. Abortion is the fuel that Satan uses to run his satanic machine. So every time an abortion is done, and it's not just every time they're done, because abortions around the world are dedicated to Satan every night across all the time zones at 3 a.m. And it's by Satanists and witches. And there's some people that don't consider themselves Satanists and witches, and they still dedicate the abortions. Because if you're giving the devil what he wants, he will grant you back certain powers as well, certain gifts, so to speak. And it's not always what you want exactly. I mean, when you sell your soul to the devil to be a rock star, you're not always the rock star you want it to be. Sometimes you got a few $100,000 instead of a few $1,000,000. Or you got a brand new Toyota instead of a Lamborghini, but you still got a new car. So there's, it's not just, it's everything that's evil in the world is funded by something. Everything that's wrong or wicked is funded by something. If you're wondering about the strip club around the corner or the bar around the corner that's always got a fight on it, every Saturday night somebody's getting stabbed, well, that's not godly. Who do you think's supplying the satanic power for that? How many abortions are you having in your county or your city or your state or your country every night? In America, we have 1.3 million dead babies every year. That's just in Planned Parenthood, and that's by their own numbers. That's what they claim they do. So 1.3 million dead babies every year by just Planned Parenthood. That's a lot of satanic fuel.
Is consecration to the Virgin Mary powerful, and how do you suggest this should be done?
I don't know if you guys can see my tattoos. I have one that shows a St. Benedict crucifix, and around the four quads, it says 2013. That's the year I consecrated to the Blessed Mother. And then across the bottom, it says Annunciation, and that's the feast of the Annunciation that I consecrated. There's 3 different ways to consecrate. There's the St. Louis de Montfort, there's St. Maximilian Kolbe, and there's 33 Days to Morning Glory. Now, it's extremely important to consecrate. The graces that you get, and every time you do something, if you're not consecrated, you do things and eventually you think, oh, I need to join that pain and suffering to join Jesus on the cross and let the Blessed Mother use that grace for whatever she wants. But when you're consecrated to Mary, she automatically comes and gathers that grace and uses it for whatever she wants. Now, you might decide, I would also like that to go to this other cause as well. Grace doesn't have to be limited to one thing, so you can do that. But on top of what you're giving the grace to the Blessed Mother for, she's using it for whatever she wills, which she's smarter than we are, so she knows, what she should be putting that towards. Now, I tell people there's the three methods, and St. Maximilian Kolbe and St. Louis de Montfort are both kind of daunting. There's a lot of stuff you have to do. But I'm an extremist, so doing one of those two was a no-brainer for me. But I did both. But the other one is 33 Days to Morning Glory. The most important thing here is to get consecrated. So if you're looking at Maximilian Kolbe or St. Louis de Montfort and you're thinking, that's a lot of work, I don't want to do that. I want to be consecrated, but I don't want to do all that work. 33 Days to Morning Glory is a book where you go through the front of the book and pick the feast day to Mary you want to consecrate. And then you read 2 pages a day until you're at your feast day. All right, you have to read 33 days, but it tells you when to start and when it finishes. And you read 2 pages a day, which isn't even a full 2 pages. 2 pages a day until you've consecrated. 33 days, 66 pages. It's so simple. So if you want, do that first. Get consecrated. That would be the most important thing. And then do one of the harder ones. But at least get it under your belt that you're consecrated. Because it's a mighty, mighty act to do, and the devil doesn't want you to do it.
Does celebrating Holy Mass with dignity or receiving the Eucharist worthily have repercussions on the soul?
Absolutely. In the understanding of spiritual warfare, you have to look at the opposite. Do you believe in the true presence? Because if you don't believe in the true presence, there's 56,000 Protestant denominations that are all willing to take you. But if you believe in the true presence, we're the only game in town. We're the only ones that have the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ. And going up without being worthy to receive him. Do you remember the woman in the Bible that knew if she could just touch the hem of his cloak, her bleeding, her internal bleeding would be stopped, her hemorrhaging? Well, I'd be okay with people taking it in the hand if they could come with that reverence, with knowing that Jesus is going to heal them no matter what, and that's why they have to touch him. But they don't. People go up front, and in America, I've seen people chewing gum or eating potato chips before they take the host, or eating a pizza in the aisle in the pew before they take the host. Like Jesus is the least important thing of what they're doing. It's the least important part of their day. I've even seen some people in bathing suits because they're going to go to the beach right after they leave Mass. And this isn't how things should be. Taking that Mass, taking that Eucharist, that's the most important part of your day. It's a beautiful thing. Being in a state of grace, which is the only way you should be taking the Eucharist, because remember, when you're taking the Eucharist not in a state of grace, they compared that to pouring fresh wine in old wineskins and it bursting. That's not a good place to be. We've got to be in a state of grace. Also, you never know when you're going to die. You know, people don't just automatically go to heaven. That's not how this works. You know, St. Paul didn't say, figure out your salvation with fear and trembling, but once saved, always saved. That's not a real thing. Please. And remember, as I said in my previous message, you cannot sell your soul. You cannot sell what you do not own. Thank you.
Communion in the hand, what consequences does it have?
Well, there's been saints that have said that people spend extra time in purgatory for taking it in the hand. There's also people that say, and saints as well, I think, that have said that you'll go to hell for taking it in the hand. And think about who is worthy of taking it in the hand. The woman in the Bible that knew that if she just touched the hem of his cloak, she'd be healed, and the priest who's been consecrated by the bishop and had his hands ordained. You know, those are some pretty big deals because the priest can be in persona Christi if he's in a state of grace. So, other than that, we should all be taking it on the tongue. There's no excuses for anybody.